And thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy days to join today. It's obviously a very busy time of year for you all, and well, quite frankly, a very crazy time in the NHS. So well done for taking the time out and for joining, and thank you. Just to introduce myself, my name's Grace Lovelady. I work in the central team at One NHS Finance, and I'm really delighted to welcome you all to our showcase session today, focusing on a very topical topic, psychological safety, which our lovely colleagues at London North West University Healthcare NHS Trust will be delivering and discussing. Very much an important initiative led by the finance department at the trust, and this is a part of the One NHS Finance Culture series that we're running throughout the year. So this is just one of many that we've already ran this year, and there are many more coming up. So do take a look at the One NHS Finance website to find out more about the series, and if there's any that you'd like to attend and watch back. And I'm delighted that we have Wendy Harrowell and Sheikh Motin from the Trust here to deliver the session today. And I will let them introduce themselves properly, and they will be delivering the session and facilitating the presentations. But just before I hand over to our speakers, I just want to make everyone aware that we are recording the session so that it is available for people to watch afterwards. And if you do have any questions for our speakers today, please utilise the chat function or raise your hand after they've finished presenting. And I do believe they want to make this quite an interactive and discussion-led session. So without further ado, I will hand over to our speakers, Wendy and Sheikh. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. It's good afternoon now as well. Nice, lovely sunny day, depending where you are in the country, I suppose. Firstly, thank you for joining this session. Wendy and I will run this through. Wendy's going to run through a number of slides. Just before we do that, just to introduce myself, I'm Deputy CFO at London North West. I've been here about 3.5 years, coming up to 4. Been in the NHS a very long time in various systems and organisations. By London mainly, but I have worked in as well in Essex, in the East region, South East region. And as Grace said, it's a very kind of topical area, very important to us, not only within the trust, but within the finance community and within the health service as a whole. I think post-COVID, it's important that we are able to create an environment where our teams, our staff, are able to express themselves without any challenging or without any constraint. And it's work in progress for us, but I thought we'll join and share our journey. So Wendy, do you want to introduce yourself quickly, and then I'll quickly run through the agenda and then hand it over to Wendy, and then towards the end we can have some interactive Q&A session for about 2 minutes. So.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks ever so much, Sheikh. So my name is Wendy Harrowell. I'm the Head of Financial Strategy and Transformation here at London North West. I'm approaching my 18th year in the NHS. I have stayed and worked across North West London through that entirety of that period. I've started off as sort of an internal graduate trainee at Ealing Hospital. I worked through, gave me the opportunity and exposure to sort of financial services, transactional sort of inputs into the finance team, leading into financial management. And as I've worked through my career, I've kind of expanded my horizons, working a little bit in the PMO sort of style functions, doing a lot around efficiency. But I have spent the lion's share of my career working with sort of part of the financial management team and working in business partnering. My current role as Head of Financial Strategy and Transformation, I have 3 pillars. I look after the efficiency plan. I look after our grip and control program around governance. But the third pillar, where sort of this really sort of leads me to sort of take forward this part of the presentation, is around sort of our finance team and transformation. So working through our One NHS Finance Accreditation and really just how we can improve the service that we provide to our budget holders and our customers alike, but also around how we enrich our team and provide them with the opportunities that best opportunities that we can.
Thanks, Wendy. So could you get the slides up just to on the agenda? If we go to the next slide, please. Right, so the session will cover for us the catalyst for change and what we got involved in that. And there is a broader backstory, and I have both me and Wendy and certainly me have a lived experience over the last 18 months on some of this. Some of that very, very detailed. We won't go to that because it's session for all. But if anyone's interested in finding out more about what we did, how I got involved, and some of the lived experience of my colleagues, do get in touch with me or Wendy offline, and we can go through that. Then when we run through some of the aspects of psychological safety, the iceberg, the brace for impact, and more importantly, I suppose our approach. What did we do, and what did we learn, so we can share that with you. And towards the end, and I'll wrap up on how do we take these forward and how we are taking it forward. And perhaps about 20 minutes or so, we should have about 25 minutes on Q&A, and maybe we can get in more involved in and directed by you, really, your questions and your comments. So if that's okay with everyone, Wendy, is it all right for you to jump it away?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I'm going to start off around what lit the touch paper around sort of our change in our approach. So we received our published staff survey results, which was based on 2023 performance. And you can see the slide there really that there was sort of across several domains, we saw a real deterioration in our performance and our scores. Positive thing that we did take away from this is we had 98 members of staff that responded. We had a huge response rate of 91%. That representative of our overall number of employees employed at that point in time. And I think what it did signal to us is high engagement and the fact that our colleagues really did want to be listened to. The second part of this really is just unpicking the key areas around what this fleshed out for us, around where we really needed to focus our attention on, around where we weren't quite getting the right levels of support across the organisation, weren't providing the right level of opportunities to now enable sort of us to listen to our members of staff at an individual level, but also around sort of making sure that we were signposting the right opportunities for our team, and making sure that we had the right sort of communication channels in place. So the key things that came back from our survey was a real reduction in staff feeling trusted to do their job, and with that came real low enthusiasm around how they were approaching their work because of not feeling that level of security. We did notice that from the performance and the results that we did come back, there was some real stark differences between the different services. So like you guys, when you get your staff survey, you get the results back at sub-function level within finance. And we did find that actually, particularly with regards to our staff in our transactional based services, compared to sort of the roles that have a bit more of a sort of outward look across the service, or, you know, business partnering teams, there was a real difference around the level of experience that was being felt and realised by our team. There was a high sense that the team were being sort of felt ill-equipped to undertake the job in hand, didn't feel enthused about sort of coming to work and really sort of feeling that they wanted to be there day in, day out. This was all paired, which I know that we see and we hear sort of day in, day out, around challenges in all of us really being able to achieve a really good and healthy work-life balance, and feeling that the overall asks is sometimes unrealistic. And the other one, the key one really that sort of resonated a bit really, is the suggestions that the team were putting forward around how to improve. Nothing was being done. So where suggestions were being put forward, we weren't hearing our staff or weren't listening to them in a productive way. What I'll do is we obviously, the scope of the programme is we are looking at psychological safety. So psychological safety, just there really from a theoretical sense, is the right to feel safe at work, being able to speak out, to listen to sort of ideas, questions, concerns made, and ultimately just creating that open culture of just making sure if colleagues have something to say, they've got a recommendation, they feel unsafe for any reason, that we've got a clear method that they can find someone to talk to, ensure that they are listened to, and more importantly, something is done about it. I have touched a little bit here just around psychosafety. You'll see on the staff feedback, there was definitely around sort of these themes about being ill-equipped to undertake the role. And we really did reflect on that, as well as psychological safety, but the psycho-safety aspects around creating that absolute safe environment. So giving people the right tools, everyone, I think, you know, dealing with the hybrid working around that shift and that change around our physical environments. They may not have been looked after, as well as because, you know, a proportion of our team had definitely gone to that home working environment. So it was definitely about regrouping in that space, making sure that we had clear visibility around what hybrid working looked like, how the team should be supported, and also for the members of staff that were on site, ensuring that they had the right resources and the right environment to be able to do their role effectively. So when we set off to do this, we didn't look at any theory at all. This was just very much a case of us going through and going, right, we need to find a way to create an open culture. We need to find a way to listen to our staff. But in pulling together the presentation, Shek and I have gone, there is so much that sort of linked to the sort of theoretical side that I thought was really just a little bit sort of worth touching on. If you haven't come across it before, Freud had a theory about the iceberg and the mind being an iceberg. So you see the conscious mind sort of there is a visible above the horizon and the subconscious below. What has happened in recent years is various theorists have taken that model and applied it much more to the psychological safety, and really just about sort of looking at the trend of behaviours, the attitudes, the values, the beliefs, the identity of an individual in the workplace, being sure that we are really, you know, we are listening to our staff where they want to share those thoughts and views, giving them the avenue to do it, and actually in the bottom left hand side pushing the values and the beliefs and sort of what's important to our staff, making it more visible, and, you know, giving everyone an avenue to sort of talk that through where they're able to do that. We have got really clear trust values here at London North West. I've put them there, sort of quality at our heart, which is built around honesty, equity, accountability, respect and teamwork. We've got really good foundations around sort of what the expectation is from us and how we should behave, how we should support our colleagues. And it was really just around looking at this through the openness of communication. How did we draw sort of more of that information, more of that context above that horizon line, so we could best respond to what our staff was telling us. So the key thing is I'll walk you through obviously all of the things that we have done at London North West to create that sort of open culture. But I think the key thing is if you're looking at this and going, there are areas that I really want to improve on and you know, create that open channel of communication. The one thing I would say is it says it there. Brace for impact. You need to go in with this with sort of fearless management structure and really wanting to own and really listen and be active in the listening around sort of the feedback that the team are providing. The feedback, and we did see it wasn't always pretty. In some cases there were elements were a little bit concerning, but the importance was that the senior leadership team owned it and said, we want to hear, we want to fix this, and actually just looking at the ostrich there in the top right hand corner, burying your head in the ground and sort of like just going, oh, it's okay over here. We just wanted to make sure that we had a sort of bear all approach, and just make sure that collectively we were supporting sort of we were supporting each other's as leaders around to support around the challenges that did come out and that were fleshed out as part of the process. But we absolutely owned it, and put in changes to make sure that if staff had raised concerns or staff were feeling particularly aggrieved in any way, we put in interactions to make sure that we addressed it and we were communicating with them that, you know, this is what we had done. So I'm going to go back again, as I said, linking this back round to sort of the pillars of psychological safety. So there are 4 pillars of psychological safety if you look sort of through the core theory, and it was around how we created those avenues. So the first one is around active listening. So active listening, I'm sure you would have heard before, but it is around making sure that you are fully listening, and you are not just listening to what you have been told. You're taking on board the body language of an individual when they're sort of conveying to you, but also it's learning from each other. So where it's a case of, you know, pinching with pride, as you may have heard before, it's how do you sort of take those areas where people are really celebrating success and apply it and make it happen. In order for us to create a safe environment to really reach out to our team, and particularly reach out to the individuals, as I mentioned earlier, in transactional services who really weren't getting their voice heard at the table, there were several things that we've done at London North West really to create that environment. So firstly, SHEC went and met with all of our sub teams, which meant sort of 18 sort of separate interactions following our staff survey. He did this in collaboration with our HR business partner, and just using the staff survey went, okay, safe space to talk. Do not feel that this is going to be escalated to your manager, but we want to hear from you around what is not working for you and how can I help. And SHEC really owned this in the sense of taking that on his shoulders to say, I want to hear from you and I want to make change happen. It gave a real sense that if there was a collective problem within a sub team, they had that real sense and sort of power in numbers, to sort of have that open dialogue with SHEC and our HR business partner, with not feeling it wasn't going to go anywhere else apart from the fact that we were going to listen to your change and do something about it, the change needed, and do something about it. But it was really a sense of anyone who felt there was a problem, and they might talk to each other locally, but it was the opportunity to really sort of push that up the agenda and ensure there was senior leadership. The senior leadership team were hearing it. The next one is we have monthly directorate meetings. We created a form around anonymous question and answers. And through this, it was about really using a Microsoft Teams form to collect information in advance around questions that the team had. When we first launched this, we got, I think it was pushing 40 questions on our very first launch of this, around where everyone had clearly had all of these questions. They were like, I don't know where the right forum is. I don't feel confident to switch my camera on in the directorate meeting and articulate sort of what it is I need a response to. It gave those individuals who were less confident the opportunity to do that, and be able to sort of feel that they had that avenue and that way in. We would then publish the questions. As I said, we didn't know who they were from, but we did a sort of you said we did through our directorate meetings, and we try desperately to continue that through our directorate meetings that we have to date. Questions now are much more limited, and we are really seeing a real shift around the confidence in our team, feeling that they are able to actually speak up and not having to do it in terms of anonymous questions and talk in person. And then the other key area for us around active listening is really leaning on both the One NHS finance networks, but also what we have around our internal networks around how this creates sort of common areas of either sort of access to training, which was sort of a common area that was flagged around sort of needing support, but also what we have really found the networks has been really supportive is those that have found the kind of day-to-day job not as fulfilling as they would really like it to be, but giving them another layer to their role, something else that they could get involved with, and actually sort of own and champion as well. And we've seen a real change in several members of our staff, for example, that by taking on some of these key responsibilities, representing London North West, representing our finance department within the trust, particularly with regards to our heart ambassadors, which links to our values, as I mentioned before, but also sort of locally within our green champions. So we're really proud of the amount of people that are really invested across these programs, and it has given the team another voice across sort of a much wider network. Next pillar is around committed leadership. So touching a little bit on this about, being fearless. We've done several sort of programs around how we have improved or better equipped our managers. And when I say managers, it's anyone who has got a line management responsibility to another person within the trust. And we've done this through several formats. So we have an engagement and communications group. We've got volunteers, basically someone who's representing each sub-function across the trust. And it's about continuing the good work that I mentioned on the active listening that Shek did previously, of going out and to meet the teams. It's creating sort of that forum for collective feedback. But the one thing the engagement comms team has done is the team has said, it's lovely being part of a group, but want to see tangible outputs out of it. So we have led some really big key changes and agendas for us. So around whether that's around improving the visibility on the intranet and access to information to our budget holders, whether it's been around improving appraisals and how we run appraisals. It's led us to sort of putting a lot more focus on our one-to-ones, because the appraisal process just happens annually, but really in the sense of sort of developing the one-to-one process, because that is where the gold is, around that regular sort of content and conversation. The next one is mentioning previously, anyone who has a line management responsibility. There has been sort of a common program of, I think it's 4 to 5 modules that Shek with NHS LEC have put on across the trust to ensure that there is a basic level of support, understanding, and a common level of expectation around, if you are a line manager, this is what is expected of you, and this is how you need to support your team within the organisation. So setting that benchmark, setting that standard. We highlighted through the engagement sessions, trust mentoring and shadowing opportunities were highlighted in the sense of they were really, really lacking. So the national programs are really, really stretched on the training, on the mentoring programs. So with the support of our own internal HR team, they basically developed, co-developed with Shek, a program that was relevant for us as a trust, that basically tooled up all of the senior leadership team and anyone who had an interest in wanting to become a mentor, so that we created enough mentors to meet the demand of the mentees across our trust. So it has been 100% one of our biggest success stories, and actually it was a program that was shortlisted through the HFMA London Awards around sort of the impact that it had. The next one is around authenticity, and authenticity in the sense of it is really around that group sense and around sort of having that group well-being as well as focusing on the individual. And we've done that around sort of 3 key areas. We mentioned before, obviously, it's the junior tiers within our organisation didn't feel that they had that right access and support, and we really targeted sort of 3 key groups around where we felt that we needed to make sure that we put a little bit more in around sort of getting everyone having the opportunity to meet individuals that either were studying, were band 2 to 5, so had a lot more sort of a transactional focus within their role, and also with regards to we have got a high number of interns across our trust. We've been really successful around appointing individuals as part of the Insights programme as well as part of the National Graduate Scheme. So by creating those 3 sort of groups, we've been able to identify a member of the senior leadership team to anything that comes out of them around unblocking sort of support or areas needed. It just gives them a little bit of those 3 project areas around individuals to talk to each other and address sort of common issues and common areas around where they might be struggling or need a little bit of investment or time and support. And then the final one around sort of the 4 pillars of psychological safety is around fostering a culture of respect. And this is one that we have done around, I'll sort of work around the speech bubbles in reverse, but setting out the expectations around our welcome package around individuals that come into the organisation. Our interns, as I mentioned previously, they're sort of, come into the organisation and really sort of, they developed our induction booklet, and it was that through their active learning, and they've gone, actually, this would have been helpful to have known, or actually, this is kind of what would have been useful to know around sort of the right ways of working, who to approach, who are our experts who can help if you did have a problem. We have definitely done a lot of work, particularly through our directorate sessions, using LinkedIn, using also as well sort of our internal Teams channel, but around promoting positivity, promoting the success of our teams. We have done something definitely around our monthly directorate meetings. We've given each team a slot to say, we want to hear about the great work your team are doing. We don't want to wait to, when there's the big sort of award celebrations, or where we've done a big project that we've supported across the hospital. We want to know what's going on BAU for you, and around actually what might have been a bit knotty and a bit tricky, and where you feel the team have really pulled together to make a real positive impact. We have done this because it is a case of really understanding and respecting the challenges that teams are facing day to day. We understand the big pressures, and we see sort of, the big deadlines that come down on us and what we have to hit, but actually there are real individual sort of team struggles and challenges there that they've had to face, they've had to collectively work to overcome, and it's been really, really important that we share and celebrate in that success, as well as sort of some of the big initiatives that we've also been successful on. And I think the other area that we've really pushed on, so we started around, I mentioned previously around our engagement and comms group, looking about the importance of our appraisals. But the bottom line for us actually, when we did a lot of a detailed work working with our HR team, they were just like, appraisals are fabulous. They are the right way. They're a really good way to sort of take stock at the end of the year, reset your objectives. But the importance is really at the around from the one-to-one conversations. We access One NHS Finance. There was a really great template on there around sort of how to have meaningful conversations during your one-to-one, and around what conversations you should be having on a regular basis and striking those right notes. And we initially did this as a, if you feel it will be helpful, if you feel that you're not having the right conversations with your managers, this might be a useful tool to do it. But as we've developed through the years, over the past 2 years and around, we've moved that to a mandatory template now. In moving that to a mandatory template, we've just got a sense that actually our teams are having the right conversations with their managers and being supported in the right way. Just moving away from the psychological, just around sort of what we've done on the psychosocial side. So SHEC, with the support of our estates team, that, our estate had been neglected sort of since our returning from the, getting back to sort of more presence on site post-pandemic. And it's about, there's a lot of invested time that SHEC and the estates team are around creating our office environment and making sure that it is fit for purpose. It's work in progress, but actually, we can see the end point of that work plan now. And yeah, just really, really great around sort of creating that welcoming environment and encouraging and wanting people to feel that, they're positive and want to come into the office and come into work. We have monthly, it's actually been running this morning, but we have health and wellbeing lounges. So our health and wellbeing team, they set up pop-up lounges across the trust for various services. So for finance, they come and visit us once a month. You've got someone qualified there in our wellbeing team to have a conversation about if you're having sort of particular struggles, needing access to some of the trust resources, and helping with a little bit of signposting around what might be useful if you are experiencing a sort of a particular challenge that they might be able to sort of help you with. But ultimately it is a breakout area, it is a breakout session where the teams just have the ability to just take a little bit of time away from the desk, away from the challenges that we see day in, day out, and just have that little bit of time for self-reflection and support. And then the other areas around how we provide that ongoing, we've really ramped up our social engagement program. So we're doing a lot more sort of in the sports and socials arena, just to very, very difficult. And I'm sure colleagues on the call were finding this, in the sense of, meetings happen and they're rammed around and they're back to back, and it's really difficult to sort of find that time to really get to know colleagues and appreciate them, and understand sort of what's important to them outside of, obviously, the world for us of London Northwest. So it has created sort of new relationships and created new bonds, and particularly sort of opened up sort of cross team working and appreciation. So it's definitely an area we need to do more on. And then finally, it's around our intranet offer. So just improving our training and resources, that ongoing support of we have created like a list of experts. So I am the expert listed for Model Hospital, for example. We're using Model Hospital a lot more around the productivity focus, and that sort of how we are being asked to look at and monitor our performance, and the Model Hospital tool has been really, really useful. So if anyone wants sort of guidance internally, they're signposted to me around how they can best use Model Hospital information if they're doing a business case, doing a service appraisal, anything like that. But we do that across like our systems, our practical applications around our ledger, and everything else. But it just gives the team, if they've got a query or they're not quite sure how to solve it, there is a named person who they can approach, so they're not struggling in silence. Where does that place us? Following our level 2 accreditation last year, after we've sort of done all of the interventions that I've sort of gone over on the past 5 slides, this is where we are now with regards to the feedback in our team. We're really, really proud. This is commentary that was captured directly as a result of our assessment from our members of staff. There's great comments about happiest department they've ever worked in, really feeling that if comments are made, they're listened to and something is done about it. Feel that we really do share and celebrate success, and reference to really around sort of some of our interventions that we've done, like the finance and engagement group, around really where it's driven real positive change, and actually it's just a way of how we've been able to sort of take things forward. So we're hugely proud of, from where we were sat on our 2023 staff survey, given the active feedback that we're seeing now. It's a really positive place to be, compared to where we were. So but still work to do. Shek, should I hand you back over to our next steps?
Thanks, Wendy. Really, really helpful. So I mean, just to say, in summary, it's been a pretty tough 18 months, I would say. Not only other stuff and work, but just going through this, and it's sometimes it's been quite intense. And as Wendy mentioned, sometimes I feel like I'm carrying a burden on my shoulder and I have to do something about it. And I have, but there's a way to go. I think the key thing is that as a trust, different to anywhere else in the NHS, we've all committed to our values. And for us, the heart values in honesty, equity, accountability, respect, and teamwork are similar to others. But the broader NHS values and the people promise, NHS people promise. So within that context, I think we've just tried to have a go at see how we can improve people's lives and working lives really here when we're working in the finance department of London Northwest. It's a large department. I've got about 120 odd colleagues who work for us. So very, very important to keep that back, and really, really grateful. And some of you have probably joined here, grateful to the team for engaging in that process, because it's not an easy job when you're trying to change culture. It takes time. There's a long way to go. Culture takes time. But our commitment remains unchanged. We continue to listen at directorate meetings on a one-to-one basis, a senior leadership team at all levels. Really, it's a complicated structure. In terms of the makeup of the team, there's 26, 27 ethnic heritage background. So it's a very diverse team that represents the rest of the organisation and the population that we serve, actually. So it's a really great place to be. But we are trying to address unconscious bias continually, which is quite difficult to do, but it's a work in progress. And absolutely, in terms of how do we maintain that openness and transparency? You know, it's quite easy to get back into your old ways, isn't it? So it's a good learning curve for many of the senior team as well. I think what we could definitely do more of, and is how do we make sure, for example, for me, every single individual is having a one-to-one. Now, one-to-one doesn't have to be every week, every month, every year. As long as there's some sort of one-to-one, and I know it's a very busy team and department, but everyone has the right to have a conversation with the line manager or a supervisor. And although we've set templates and guidance, I think culturally it takes time to change that habit. And I know that isn't 100% across my department, and I want to get there. We are making I mean, talk about talent management, as you know, everyone is trying to implement that across the board. But the beauty of talent management that's coming out of the One Finance route is, the way I look at it, it's built from based on, there's something there for everyone, isn't there? It's not just about your qualified, part qualified, you know, people who have ambition to be CFOs and so forth. I'm sure everyone does. It is actually about everyone. Our departments are made up of people who are at different stages of their career, different stages of their life. And I think the talent management strategy that we're trying to implement in support of One Finance is one that gives an opportunity to all. And wherever you are, you have an opportunity to grow, and we're there to support you. So trying to implement it in that comprehensive, grassroots way is the term that I would normally use. I think it's not going on in the NHS at the moment, isn't it? So I think that's probably why it's more relevant we're having this conversation right now. We mustn't forget the people. We mustn't forget our people, because our people is what we need to continue to change the NHS and make them better for our staff and our patients. And culture takes time to change, but it does require change from the bottom as well as the top. So there is commitment from the top, all the way from the board, trust, and equally, I think we are getting the commitment from the grassroots as well to say the status quo is not acceptable. We deserve to be working in an environment that is far more better, improved for us as a whole, and collectively we're trying to change that from bottom up as well. So we'll continue on that journey. We've only just started. It's been 18 months and we've just started. It's a long way to go, but I want to make sure that that commitment is there from everyone, not only the city team, but from all our colleagues who work within the trust. So that's where we are, I think. Should we pause then? And so there's about 20 minutes left, isn't there, for any Q&A and comments? And I haven't checked any chats. I can't think there's many. Okay, easier. So Grace, I was just going to, unless there's anything else you want to add, Wendy, to wrap up?
No, that's covered everything. Yeah, spot on. Thank you, Shek.
So if that's okay, Grace, we'll open it up to colleagues on the floor, and we might be able to get in a bit more than me if you depending on the question, doesn't it?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much both. So let's open it up for questions. If anyone wants to drop anything in the chat, I can facilitate the chat box, or if you'd like to raise your hand and ask a question, even better. So the floor is yours, guys. Use the time well if you like.
But while we're waiting for questions, I will add another bit, and I think we do need to recognise the reality of it. This process takes time, commitment, and sometimes I feel a bit lonely. You get a bit lonely, don't you? Because you are making some difficult decisions. Or certainly I have made some very, very difficult decisions, which are quite challenging. You have to see it through. But part of leadership is doing the right thing, and I will do that over and over and over again, regardless. But that requires resilience, commitment, and be able to see beyond the current position, which is doing something good for the people that we work together with every day, pretty much, and spend more time here than at home. We work from home, but in terms of work, most of the time we're working remotely. So yeah, just wanted to park that there, because it is quite a difficult thing to do, and you have to call it. If you genuinely care, and if you genuinely not just paying lip service, actually doing something about it, then you will have to make in this journey some difficult decision at some point. And I would encourage for leaders to do the right thing.
Thanks, Jack. We've got one question in the chat, so I'll read it out. What proportion of staff are working from home, hybrid working, and also on site? And do you have a single site for the trust where everyone that wants to can find a desk space?
Yeah, so we're quite fortunate. So we've got 3 sites, but our main finance function is at Harrow in Northwick Park. There's plenty of space for people. We have got a facility in Ealing Hospital as well. It's there. That was the old Ealing, before the trust merged. There was a finance department, and that space is still there. Hybrid working wise, on average, our teams come in 2 to 3 days, moving more towards 3 days in the office, 2 days from home. But the teams vary. So if you look at our payroll function, some of the colleagues in payroll function work remotely. Some of it is part of when we took over services from private sector. So those terms are there. In other end, when you're looking at business partnering, some colleagues are here 4 or 5 days a week. So it varies, but on average, we encourage people to be here 2 to 3 days, and we're moving more towards 3 days now. I think the rest of the NHS is following. That answer the question, Helen?
Thank you, Jack. There's another couple in the chat now as well. So did you have any challenges in regards to people opening up about their queries and concerns as part of that sort of consultation piece at the beginning of all this work?
Do you want me to take that one, Jack?
Yeah, go on, you do it, and I'll come in.
No, it's too. Yeah, so I think you will see sort of through the different strategies that we've applied, and sort of going through sort of the slides earlier, we've tried different tactics as we've sort of progressed over the past 18 months to open up that dialogue and that communication, starting from the group sessions that Shek led, leading to the sort of open Q&A that completely anonymous, and creating that platform for people to have the conversation, moving to the one-to-one conversation templates. The next stage for us, because we still don't feel that we're hearing from everybody that we need to, is using the talent management conversations. So we've got an individual in our team who actually is independent, sits outside of sort of the core subdirector within finance. She is going and supporting with our talent management conversations, and by having sort of not having that affiliation to the subdirectorates, it's creating that other channel, that other sort of safe space to sort of create that open communication. But we always feel that there's more we want to hear, there's more people we need to hear from, and it's just adapting our techniques and our strategies to create those opportunities.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit on there. I think creating that safe space is quite difficult. I mean, we're in a better position than we were before, and there's a long way to go. But when I was cracking this, well, yeah, it's over 12 months ago now, because I met with people over a 2-month period, but in teams, 16, 17, 18 teams, I think I got to. On top of that, tried to separate out where there are line managers. So had met with line managers as separate group as peers, as opposed to with their teams, and sometimes individuals who don't fit into a team as well. So there's quite a lot of conversation and interviews. Some, when I say HR, where they're only as business partners to help, not in a compliance way. And some they joined, some they didn't, just to create that environment so people feel safe to talk. And I took a lot away. Most of the things, actually, to be honest, I didn't write down, because I agreed that I won't write it down unless people want me to. So, and hence I talk about carrying that burden. I had to do something about it. So I think it's cracking that bit when historically, because it's cultural, people have had those conversations before. Not a lot has happened in their experience. And I'm always on here, so I can't judge that. But I knew that where I can, I'm going to do something about it. And then lending on all the senior team, like Wendy and my other colleagues in the senior team, to get them on board very supportive CFO who was completely empowering me to do this, by the way, Jonathan Reed, who's now in Sussex, or anyone who's joined from Sussex. And you need that top level cover from the execs, and I have that, and we have that. So I think that's quite important, because when you're making promises, you need to be able to deliver that. The barrier, from Leslie, in your opinion, what was the biggest barrier to change? I think it's the historical setup of the way, for me anyway, and when you had, because you've been here longer, when you may have seen it in a different way. It's people, because people have talked to people in the past and not much has changed. A lot of colleagues don't feel confident to come out, certainly not on their own. And I think when they collectively started to come back, so they were creating an environment where they can also, those teams I talk about, some of them are 4 or 5 people, but them also coming together as feeling safe as a group to come out rather than individually, because sometimes you feel that if you come out individually and say something, then at some point someone might come back to you. But when you come out as a group and it's everyone's affected in the same way, I think it's much more, creates a bit more confidence as a group, because not everyone individually are highly confident, by the nature of that. So I think it's cracking that bit took a while, several goes over time. As I've said, I've been here 3.5, nearly 4 years. I've only started to get into this over the last couple of years, and it doesn't mean I haven't been before. It's taken time to get to, and then earn people's trust as well. That takes time, doesn't it? The deputy CFO comes in from wherever, how do you trust someone? And I wasn't part of the fabric. So that is still a journey, by the way, but I think it's time. I know we don't have a lot of time. Hopefully people can learn from this and accelerate in other similar situations, learning from us, and we're keen to learn from others as well. If that answers your question, Leslie and Helen. Sorry, Wendy, did you want to add anything else on that biggest barrier to change?
Yeah, it was definitely changing people's mindsets, wasn't it? And it was very much a case of, I've raised it before, nothing happened. What's going to be different this time? And I think it's by the commitment, people seeing active change around where things are said and things are being done. It's only by the behaviours and by the action that's been taken, people are finding that level of confidence and inspiration and trust that actually things are changing and we are listening and things are going to change for the better.
Thanks, Wendy. So Helen's question, did any of the issues stem from the ICS system working? And if so, do you think it's fed back up? To be honest, I don't really know. All I can say is, and this is not just by the finance department, it's the trust as a whole, isn't it? Many organisations pre-COVID, some were lucky and weren't going through a turnaround, others weren't. And this was an organisation that went through a systemic change constantly for about 5-10 years, partly through mergers, partly through other changes, and the national turnaround is kind of what has been normal pre-COVID. And I think that in that, so you could say, whether it's an ICB now or ICS, but there has been some level of, that's how the system also operated. But I can't quite link that really. I think it's more internal. I think it's more about, sometimes it's complacency, but other times it just happens over time, doesn't it? And I think it's just creating an environment where people have hope. Sometimes people lose hope and they just bury themselves in the ground, don't they? And it's creating that hope, I think, is really important. To answer your question, Helen. Yes.
Yes, it does answer my question. But what we feel here at our trust is that we're just being asked to do more and more. And we're small in relation to the other providers, and we don't have the back office to adopt everything, and it could be just our ICB, but I would be surprised if it was, because they're directed so much by NHS England. So we just feel perhaps it's just another layer of people telling us what's what and not appreciating that things that are going to be good in the long run may not be as easy as falling off a log.
Yeah. I think I recognise that, and I think we've seen the manifestation of that in the last couple of weeks. Anyway, there's constant pressure on our teams, whether it's in finance or elsewhere, to do more and more and more for the same. And I think we just have to work through and navigate that through as a system. There's a lot of colleagues who are going through a difficult time at the moment. But the leadership that I'll come back to is, as leaders, how do we create an environment, A, to say, but also shield people from some of that that's coming from the top, whether it's the ICB, the region, or elsewhere, or actually from the public sometimes. You know, some of my staff get challenges from the people that they will directly, you know, patients and their relatives in finance, and how do we protect and create. And when you talked about making sure some of our facilities are properly equipped, you know, there are cameras, there are, you know, so forth. So as leaders, I think it's shielding our teams from some of that while they go through some of these changes, and prioritising. I think it's quite difficult to blame anyone. I don't think I can blame anyone other than ourselves. Really, we just need to work through and adopt. Not easier said than done, but collectively, I think it's important. And the finance committee here, you know, what we're doing through One Finance. We're quite lucky, you know. We have got a community, and I think we need to help each other out and learn from each other, rather than, dare I say, use the term suffer alone. We don't need to do that. 15,000 of us in the NHS, we can learn from each other, and work through that. Helen, sorry, I haven't got a magic answer. I'm trying to be diplomatic.
No, it's good. Yeah, we just feel sometimes
I know
people don't push back. Oh, but you know, we know they do. But when it impacts you directly, it's difficult.
Indeed.
So it's just about communication, isn't it? Always.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, keep the channels open. That's what we do.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for your answers.
And support each other. I think that's the thing. Everyone has sort of are going through the same sort of challenges, and I think recognise each other's struggles and support each other through it, and a lot of strength can be drawn from that.
Any other questions, comments from anyone?
Oh, sorry, me again. Do you mind sharing the one-to-one template that you've devised, Wendy? Whether through One NHS Finance or some other way.
Yeah, absolutely happy to. Not a problem at all.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you. Thanks.
Just to add on that talent management, you know, we talked about the next steps, and different people are implementing talent management in different ways. So as Wendy described, what I've done is people are busy, you know, managers are busy, our teams are busy. So the colleague who's going through, who's semi-independent because she's not aligned to any management structure, I think she's gone through about 40 or 50 people so far, and we'll get through the 130, is to just pick up on a one-to basis, and it's not duplicating, because some of that should be coming through one-to-one, but it also give us the colleagues on the ground an opportunity to talk to an independent person, and then who can be personalised if needed to some of those into themes. And as a management team, as a senior leadership team, then we can focus on where we need to focus our time and energy, and the time and energy is going to be quite limited, isn't it? So we need to prioritise. So this is another way of getting the grassroots input without intimidating people, without taking those barriers away, because it's semi-anonymous, isn't it, in a way, unless people want to come out and talk about something specifically. So I am trying to get to the grassroots without putting people on the spot, because it's important that we change and adopt, because some of the initiatives that we take may not work, so we'll try something different. And it's what we're trying to do. Morgan?
Hi. So just a quick disclaimer. I am working at London North West with Wendy and Shek, and just to say about not that they need my support, but just to say about the one-to-one sheet has actually been really helpful. So it's something there that you've got to help. So I think I'm hoping that, Helen, you'll find that really good, because I certainly have. I don't know about the people.
Thanks, Morgan. And Morgan's not planted. Yeah.
I'm really not, I promise.
I didn't even know Morgan's on there.
No, I was trying to stay incognito, but I just thought actually that has been so helpful to have as a manager. And whereas Helen was asking for it, I was just wanted to say to everyone, actually, it's really good to have some kind of worksheet to give you that extra part where you're talking to your members of your team.
Thanks. I mean, Claire Chadwick's asking, is it possible to share the expectations of line managers too? So I think we can share some of that. Could we not, Wendy?
Yeah, I think through the training presentations around what we've done with setting the baseline expectations around the the training package for all of our line managers that we provided, there's definitely, in the richness of that information, we can definitely provide that.
Okay, so if we could do that, that would be good. I mean, just to say, as Wendy touched on, the partnership with NH Select was a comprehensive kind of training for all managers and supervisors. Anyone who, and it could be, you know, someone who just manages a trainee for 2 days a week. It could be, so from senior to junior. And the point of that was not just about the training, because everyone had some level of management training, haven't they? But the creating that community. So when you go on one of those training and development, the way I've structured it with NH Select is they spend a bit more time on the teams then as peers interacting with each other as well. So it's a bit of a network building, community building, as well as getting training from NH Select. And I think that people connection bit is quite important, because managers and peers need to work together to be able to support colleagues on the grassroots. And as a large department, and you might say, well, a small department, you know, because it's a large department with hybrid working post-COVID, you don't really get very often who are people who are together on a regular basis. So that was another way of connecting people as well. Okay, so I think that's it, Grace. I think we've had questions and comments.
Yes, thank you so much, both Shek and Wendy. That was a really fantastic presentation with some really important insights, but also advice, as well as to some of the questions that we've had. But obviously, it's just amazing all the hard work that's been done and prioritised over the last 18 months by you guys and colleagues at the Trust. So it's clearly provided some really excellent support and opportunities for staff. So hats off to you guys, and thank you. And just to note as well, I had the pleasure of being one of the assessors for the Trust's Level 2 accreditation assessment last year, and the feedback that we heard as assessors from finance staff working at the Trust was really, really positive. And it's really clear that staff feel heard and supported across all the bands, and you know, that's obviously quite fantastic to hear firsthand. And obviously finance at the Trust is a clearly fabulous place to work, so it's great to hear, and thank you very much for sharing that with us today. I have also popped in, just from a 1HS Finance perspective, some resources in relation to what you guys were talking about today, in addition to the pieces that you're willing to share. So thank you, and I just encourage everyone attending to check those out. There's loads of free resources on the 1HS Finance website, and I'm more than happy to chat through these in more detail with anyone if they're interested. So yes, thank you both again so much for your time. Really fantastic, and have a good afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Grace. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.